In the beginning, when business was entirely manual, there was paper. Purchase orders were faxed, contracts and invoices were sent through the post, checks were manually cut. Each of these pieces of paper was filed in a filing cabinet along with other related pieces of paper. If you needed a contract, you went to a filing cabinet and pulled it out. If you needed to know the total amount of money disbursed on a particular day, you found all the checks for that day and added them up. Information was hard to find, and analyzing it was an expensive and error-prone manual process. In the 1950s, we discovered that we could automate some of that information, in particular business transactions. We put those transactions into computers, in what we know today as hierarchical data structures. This was a great leap forward because we could now easily retrieve information on purchase orders, invoices, payments, and the like, but there were still some problems. The description of the data was encapsulated within the program that manipulated it. In order to understand what the data meant, you had to find yourself a programmer and look into the code to understand that bytes 1 through 15 were the customer number and that the value was numeric. Bytes 16 through 35 contained the customer name, and so on. This meant that data could not be shared across multiple applications. In the 1980s, there was a great leap forward. Instead of putting data into hierarchical data structures, we began to use relational data structures. The good thing about relational databases was the fact that they were self-describing. You could query the database to tell you about the data that was in it, and it would tell you that bytes 1 through 15 were the customer number, and so on. This meant that the data was now more independent of the program, so it could be used by multiple applications. That one change, the ability of the data to self-describe, has led to an explosion of innovation in the structured data space. Data warehouses and data marts, business intelligence platforms are all innovations that evolved from that one significant change. However, there were still disadvantages to the relational data structure. In designing the database, you still had to presuppose the questions that you wanted to answer in order to optimize the data to answer those questions. That meant that in order to be useful, any data that you put into the database had to be structured in a very specific way. The next big wave of innovation was the recent move towards schemaless database engines, which are much more forgiving in terms of the structure and format of the data. This has led to a new explosion of activity, with new data types and sources being leveraged. But by and large, we're still talking about structured information, which is at best only 20% of the information in the enterprise. What happened to the other 80%? Well, for a long time it stayed in file cabinets, on paper. Then, with the advent of word processing and spreadsheet applications, we began to put it into electronic filing cabinets that we called file shares. Sometimes we took pictures of the paper and put those into image management systems, but we still had a problem finding information because, like with the filing cabinets, you had to know where something was, which folder it was in order to find it. And then, if you wanted to understand what the file contained, a human had to read it. At some point, we invented enterprise search applications to sit on top of all those content repositories to solve the findability problem. But they didn't solve it very well, because the only thing they could do was index all the words in a document so that when you searched for those words, you could find all the documents that contained them. But those documents might not be relevant to the context in which you were searching, and you would miss all the documents that were relevant to your search but didn't contain the words that you were searching for. And you still had to open the document and read it to figure out what it was really about. So we invented enterprise content management systems to solve this problem. With the content management systems, documents would, in theory, be tagged with all the relevant information about the content so that the computer would know what the document was about. This would make it easier not only to find information, but also to automate content-intensive manual workflows, reduce regulatory and reputational risk, and provide opportunities to increase revenue and reduce costs. The problem was that the tags were never accurate and complete. Users tag documents, when they tag them at all, based on their own personal perspectives and interests. And the tags that they use are not consistent. So it's very easy to find in any organization identical copies of documents scattered around the enterprise with completely different sets of tags. Semaphore, Smartlogic's content intelligence platform, tags content completely and consistently to provide the same self-describing capability to content that we have for structured data. It works with existing content management systems, workflow engines, and search engines so that the enterprise investment in technologies can deliver the value required without massive rip-and-replace programs. Semaphore solutions empower organizations in a broad spectrum of industries such as banking, finance, oil and gas, pharmaceuticals and life sciences, media and entertainment, insurance, retail, technology, and computer science to leverage the valuable information locked up in their content to outperform their competitors. When empowered, organizations can deliver superior customer service and relationship management, enhance information search and retrieval, drive workflow and case management, augment business intelligence applications, power risk management and regulatory compliance, and develop new revenue streams. 30 years after the self-describing revolution in structured data, we're at the point where content can self-describe in a way that allows for true innovation and exploitation. Content intelligence is the lock, Semaphore is the key.